Good morning, buenos dias, sin chao, ni hao, what's up? It's me, Mr. Jordan. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 30 of The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. So we'll start with a brief recap and summary of the chapter, then we'll do some closer line-by-line reading and a bit of analysis, and we'll finish off with some vocabulary from the chapter as well as the context and definitions of those words. Brief recap and summary of chapter 30 from The Handmaid's Tale. In this chapter, our narrator, Offred, is in her room, and it's the first chapter of a section titled Night. And she's looking out the window of her room at night, and she sees a male figure pass by on the lawn. Presumably this is Nick, but it's not actually clear who it is. She then starts to recollect her time with her former lover and husband, Luke. And specifically, she recounts an event where they left the house, or they ran away to the Canadian border after the new regime took control of America and before it became Gilead. And she recalls that they decided they had to do something about their cat. Luke took the cat out into the garage and killed it or got rid of it so that the neighbors wouldn't know they were missing. The idea being that the cat would have been meowing or wandering the streets and it would give them away. They're trying to slip away by cover of night to go into exile. Then there's a further recollection of this idea of saying her prayers. So Offred gets down beside her bed and says a prayer, and then she also remembers being forced to pray at the Red Center with Aunt Lydia watching. And finishes with a sort of dark moment of her looking out and asking God if her current life or her current situation in Gilead is a joke. So she literally says, "Oh God, it's no joke. How can I keep on living?" Let's get into some closer line-by-line reading, look at a few quotes, and then do some analysis on the chapter. Offred recounts an anecdote of her and her husband, Luke, realizing they're going to have to deal with or get rid of their house cat before they leave home. So she tells us, "The night before we left the house, the last time, I was walking through the rooms. Nothing was packed up, because we weren't taking much with us, and we couldn't afford even then to give the least appearance of leaving." So this is the premise, right? That they're doing this by cover, so that they have to make everything seem or appear normal. "So I was just walking through, here and there, looking at things, at the arrangement we had made together for our life. I had some idea that I would be able to remember, afterwards, what it had looked like." So in some ways she's foreshadowing or imagining this future life where she's gone and looking back, which she now is during this narration. "Luke was in the living room. He put his arms around me. We were both feeling miserable. How are we to know we were happy, even then? Because we at least had that, arms around. The cat is what he said. Cat, I said, against the wool of his sweater. We can't just leave her here." So notice too, the cat's a female. He says her, right? So there's some symbolism here of what's happening between men and women in America as it shifts to this new regime of Gilead. "I hadn't thought about the cat. Neither of us had. Our decision had been sudden, and then there had been the planning to do. I must have thought she was coming with us. But she couldn't. You don't take a cat on a day trip across the border." "Why not outside?" I said. "We could just leave her here." "She'd hang around and mew at the door. Someone would notice we were gone. We could give her away," I said. "One of the neighbors." Even as I said this, I saw how foolish it would be. "I'll take care of it," Luke said. And because he said it instead of her, I knew he meant kill. So again, notice how Atwood focuses on the pronouns, right? On this shift from the cat being a her or a female, a being, to the cat being an it, an object or a thing. So this mirrors and parallels the experience of Offred herself, the narrator, right? And of women, and how her ex-husband, and now Luke and the commander, see her and treat her as an object. This objectification of the cat is a distancing, right? When we treat another human as an object, as a thing, as opposed to another being capable of sympathy and empathy and feeling and emotion, it's easier for us to think of them, right? The us versus them distinction. It's easier for us to distinguish them as a non-being, as a non-human, as not being of the same value or worth as the us, the collective we. And that's what leads to heartless murder, right? This is what allows the society to be processing and killing and subjugating women, because they're no longer viewed as human. That is what you have to do before you kill, I thought. You have to create an it where none was before. You do that first in your head, and then you make it real. So that's how they do it, I thought. I seem never to have known that before. It's a really kind of profound moment for the narrator, where she understands for the first time how humans, or how men, can come to kill other people or other animals by depersonifying, objectifying, by creating a distinction, an us versus them. And you really see how the label itself, the pronoun, is what creates this pretext for murder or for dehumanization. The second passage we're going to look at is taking place in the Red Center, so in the Re-Education Center, the Rachel and Leah Center, where Aunt Lydia was teaching or inculcating Offred and the other women on how to be handmaids, how to perform that role. And it's a moment where they're being forced to say their prayers at night before bed. No longer kneeling at the foot of the bed, knees on the hardwood of the gym floor, Aunt Elizabeth standing by the double doors, arms folded, cattle prod hung on her belt, while Aunt Lydia strides along the rows of kneeling nightgown women, hitting our backs or feet or bums or arms lightly. Just a flick, a tap, with her wooden pointer if we slouch or slacken. She wanted our heads bowed just right, our toes together and pointed, our elbows at the proper angle. This is the idea of uniformity, right? Of conforming to the suggested rules and norms, of fitting these boxes, of performing the act, of becoming uniform. They're becoming sheep, right? Sheeple, cattle, industrialized, commercial, uniform, no individuality, no personality. Part of her interest in this was aesthetic. She liked the look of the thing. She wanted us to look like something Anglo-Saxon, carved on a tomb, or Christmas card angels, regimented in our robes of purity. But she knew too the spiritual value of bodily rigidity, of muscle strain. A little pain cleans out the mind, she'd say. So think about this, I think really about how people are trained through rote, their body memory, right? Through the physical actions that are repeated, like the goose step marching of soldiers, or the prayer when someone is literally bowing their head, right? It's a physical act, the physical motion or action of doing something that is significant and subjugates the state. Something as simple as putting your hand on your heart when you say the Pledge of Allegiance, or taking off your hat at a ball game. These small minor actions, these social norms that we're all expected to perform, they're significant because they imply that we're doing our duty, that we are in fact rule-abiding citizens, or in this case, handmaids. Finally, there's an interesting passage where Offred, in the commander's house, in the bedroom where she's being kept prisoner, says a prayer to God, even though she's already told us she doesn't believe that there's a God listening. So this is either a signal of desperation or of maybe her questioning her own sanity and her own beliefs. I wish I knew what you were up to, but whatever it is, help me to get through it, please. Though maybe it's not your doing. I don't believe for an instant that what's going on out there is what you meant. The you here is capitalized too. So there's been other moments where the second person, the you, is Luke or her daughter, and she's speaking to an actual human. And here it's implied that she's speaking to this higher being, this greater thing. I suppose I should say I forgive whoever did this and whatever they're doing now. I'll try, but it isn't easy. deliver us from evil. Then there's kingdom, power, and glory. It takes a lot to believe in those right now, but I'll try it anyway. In hope, as they say on gravestones. You must feel pretty ripped off. I guess it's not the first time. If I were you, I'd be fed up. I'd really be sick of it. I guess that's the difference between us. Oh God, it's no joke. Oh God, how can I keep on living? So this question, right, of the human condition and the ultimate choice to commit suicide or to murder oneself is as old as the story of humanity, right? And you see it whether it's in Hamlet, to be or not to be, the famous Shakespearean quote, or even far back as Papagiano in The Magic Flute, Mozart's story. So we see this in myths, this question of, should I carry on with my journey and my task in life, or should I just quit and give up? And it's notable that the interlocutor, who she's speaking with here, is God, is a higher being, right? She's not asking herself. She's asking the universe or the higher being to give her a purpose. Now we're going to a little vocabulary from chapter 30. So the first word is temptation. The desire to do something, especially something wrong or unwise. A thing that attracts or tempts someone. The temptation, i.e. the tempting of Jesus by the devil. So this is a test, it's a trial, right? And I think the interesting test here is that this comes in the chapter where Offred is praying. So her temptation or her test is almost inverse, right? She's testing to see if there's a God out there that's going to answer her prayers. Maybe she's wrong. Maybe there is someone listening. So she's going to give it an attempt. She's going to test or try. Betrayal. The action of betraying one's country, a group, or a person. Treachery. The betrayal by the king of his daughter. These developments represented a betrayal of democracy. So I think what's happening here is that Offred, to some extent, feels like she's betraying herself, or possibly betraying the underground and the grapevine. She's betraying her own non-believing, irreligious status, right? Her choice to be agnostic is being questioned here, and she's looking to a higher God, to a being. So in some sense, she's also possibly or thinking about converting to Gilead. Aesthetic. So aesthetics are concerned with beauty or appearance or the appreciation of something beautiful. It's also the idea of deriving pleasure or joy from the beautiful and visually appealing. A set of principles underlying the work of a particular artist or artistic movement. So they're things that are perceptible to us, right? To touch, to sight, to smell. I think the idea is that this movement of Gilead is a religious one that's also based on aesthetics, much like the uniforms and design and architecture of European fascism, right? The Italian fascismo was obsessed with design and clean lines and a certain look or feel. The idea of a military uniform. Daybreak. So there's this word daybreak, the time in the morning when daylight first appears, or dawn. And she says, I stretch out my arms towards them. They slip away from me. Ghosts at daybreak. Remember, this comes in the section titled Night. And I think it's this idea of this rift, right? This idea of separation again between the people who are believers and the godless. That there's a break or a part, a split happening between them. And it's signified or symbolized by night and day. And daybreak is the moment of parting, of the choice, the line drawn in the sand for Offred. Will she be converted to a believer, or will she hold true to herself? I hope you liked the chapter and summary, comments as well. If you have any questions, thoughts, or comments of your own, leave them below for me. I'll get back to you right away. Thanks so much for watching.